Hello and welcome to Dynamics Update. Today we will have a special edition. We will have an interview. With me as usual is Gustav Sundblad. Hi Gustav, how are you?
Hello, Johan. I'm very good, thanks. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine. I've been down with COVID, so I'm fairly okay. Maybe you can hear
Me
it on my
too,
voice,
me too.
but
Yeah.
otherwise it's okay. Yep, absolutely.
All right, good to hear.
Yes. But that's not why we're here. We're here because we have a guest today. Could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you so much indeed. Hey everybody, my name is Bartosz Szpiech. I'm the product manager and a consultant of Dynamics for about over 10 years right now. 2022, so the time flies. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Hello Gustav, hello Johan. It's a huge pleasure to share some thoughts, some knowledge we've gained throughout the years.
Yes, so you work at Executive Automates, which makes it a bit easier to get started because one of the things that I think a lot of customers have realized once going to Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations is that they have tested things before, but not even close to how much they need to test right now, because all of a sudden we actually need to upgrade the version more or less once a month.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly to the point. So when you are thinking about the background where Dynamics customers are coming from, especially having in mind Dynamics 2009, Dynamics 2012, there was not so much of testing actually. The overall business the testing was executed by the business, and this was actually the task what they had on the top of pile of other stuff they have to do. And having the occasion to participate in different implementations, I was, flooded with situations like guys from finance team doesn't want to take the testing area because they are super loaded now. And this is a significant problem because very often in implementation sites there are no people for testing. The 2012 where business was testing, and actually the number of releases was actually limited and actually was driven by the organization. Right now it has changed drastically to the pace where Microsoft dictates you where to upgrade, and indeed that's created massive confusion because actually this was the place why we decided to create something to relieve the tension from the business, so they can make sort of a bridge where they simply give us the knowledge, what they want to test, and push this to the IT. So the IT just can invoke tests over and over without, communicating with the business, without spending so much time on documentation of the processes. There's a lot of things you have to have in mind when you test, and if you don't test enough, you're gonna promote the production code which can ruin your business. So that's critical.
Yeah, super interesting. One of the things we have a lot of topics to cover here when it comes to testing and automated. It's a huge topic, like you say. AX 2012, a lot of tests, of course. Still, I mean, I think 2012 was the first environment where you could really kind of automate a daily heartbeat, really, without converting to a lot of scripts. But still, the testing part for 365 has to rely a lot on automation. And what's your opinion on the difference here with building a full process library as opposed to just building automated tests? From my perspective, it's kind of sometimes it feels a little bit too cumbersome because you have to keep track of all your processes, whereas what you really just want to do is record a number of steps and automate them, right? So what's the difference between full-blown process coverage and automated testing from Dynamics perspective? Do you have any opinion on that?
So you refer also to some kind of a unit test as well, yeah, from a developer stand view. So we see that if you would like to do, if you would like to verify properly from the beginning to the end the process, if you're gonna focus only on partial elements, you might not discover those which are found when you run in combination.
Yeah.
And this actually refers to two things. The one thing is that when you are executing your tests in just one singular way, take like a fresh environment, you log in as a user and you do the sales order creation, it might work, yeah?
Yeah.
But what if there are 100 other users doing the same or similar stuff on the environment? Then you are actually triggering number of different methods which can overlap. You can create deadlocks on the database. You can create massive other elements which can make your system can place the system in a very unstable way. So this is not only testing on the level of we can say make very hermetic or just one process on the spot test it.
Yeah.
But also, if you are thinking about end-to-end tests, you are able to test this from the perspective of the business, how they actually use it.
How they
so
do it. Yeah,
exactly, and this can trigger massive other elements, which can at the end create you some unexpected behavior of the system. Plus the maintenance and additional byproducts which can be a result of end-to-end testing, they are infinite. If you think about end-to-end tests, you are actually talking about exact business process. So what you can get from the exact business process? You can get precise description of the process. You can have in back in the head some onboarding procedures. You can have some learnings. You can have also security. We talked about briefly. You can think about the organic performance as well. The way how business is telling you what to test or how to test with the end-to-ends, they are also giving you an idea, a taste of what they actually do in the system.
I mean, one of the things that I reflect over when you say this are actually a couple of things. One of them is actually the thing that you're talking about with the end-to-end business process testing. Because one of the problems with testing Dynamics and F&O is that it's a huge system. There are literally billions of things to test. And so I'm actually thinking a lot about this when I do this for customers, that we need to scope the testing. And then the business say, no, we need to test everything. Because we can't really release Microsoft code into our environment without testing everything. But the problem is, as I see it, is that, I mean, in theory, yes, you should test everything. In practice, not even possible. I mean, it's sort of like when you take your driver's license, you always get taught that every single time you take the car out for drive, you need to go around and check the tire pressure and see that all of the turning signals are working and the horn is working. You won't do that. That won't work, because that means that you will never get out of the garage anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the car analogy is always good here, to kind of explain what do you need to do or not. But it's
exactly.
The thing here is that what we are doing in the business are the actual business processes. As long as those work, we can almost ignore a lot of the other things. But also, I'm also something that I think is a problem is that when you talk to the business, especially AX 2012, and especially I've been involved in a couple of implementation projects for AX 2012, where we actually had like a test validation system where we just checked off boxes. We did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. What I think most customer doesn't realize is that the point of testing is not to check all of the tests off. The point of the testing is to get them to fail. That's the whole idea.
Yeah. Well, two different tests, right? I mean,
no. But
the
thing is, if you test enough, it will break. And that's the point, because when it breaks, you actually find the issues. When it doesn't break, that doesn't mean that it works.
Yeah, that's why you have to have a different mentality to be a good tester. You have to be the one who kind of, what happens if I do this?
Yeah, but
you have to have that kind of mindset when you test things, right?
Because that's what
the precise.
That's what I was saying, is that the only thing that a successful test means is that it works right now.
So that's actually referring to a pretty nice example we had in the past. I didn't actually mention that, but I had the pleasure to visit over 300 sites of the customers around the globe in the past 5 years. And I've seen different crazy stuff where organization with 260 entities across the globe. I can't actually tell the name because we are under a lot of NDAs, but
Of course.
imagine 260 entities, and their test plan was having about 150 test cases, and this was just end to end. They were huge, yeah. They had multiple embedded test cases, so it means that they relate to very complex process like starting sales, then doing dispatching, and then production, and then purchasing, master planning, collection letters. Also, a lot of things can happen, yeah. And they had this type of stuff, and we've seen a company which was like a half size of them, and they had 3,500 test cases treated.
Of course.
And referring to that, to what Johan said regarding test everything, this is not agile. And I'm a huge fan lately of Scrum, and we've implemented successfully Scrum. And I see delivering quickly value is one of the benefits of it can give you a lot from the flexibility perspective, from actual maintainability of your dynamics. And I believe in combination of test automation and your dynamics and your Azure DevOps, you can create a very interesting structure where your test cases can be executed in the area where you prognose, you forecast some potential regression can happen. And if you're going to structure your test case, which is one of the criticalities when you start the test automation project, if you're going to build your end-to-end map, and we always start with sort of extraction of all of your processes. We are putting them on some aggregation level, like you have dedicated test cases for sales to cash process, or you are placing your processes against modules or organization chart. That's actually quite different levels how people are doing that. When you've got your 100% of the scope and you are actually mapping 100% what business does, this means that if those 100% processes works, this means that your business will have the continuity. You will have no downtime.
Yeah. So it's all about test coverage, or coverage,
exactly.
Yeah.
And not full coverage. Enough coverage in the main important areas. I mean, what
100% is full coverage, right?
But the thing is,
coverage.
The thing is that I usually talk to customers about. I differentiate between. And now we're not into automatic testing, but what I differentiate around are implicit testing and explicit testing. I mean, if we are using the system, then we are testing it. As long as we have a good reporting solution that tells us when something fails, and we actually have the courage to raise it as a severity, then we actually will have to fix it.
Yeah, and I think 100% coverage goes to 100% of your processes, right? I mean, if you know what you're doing, and 100% of your business is covering should be covered by tests in some way, right? That's what you mean by being able to run agile and smooth deliveries. If you have that, then automation comes in. Of course, you could just as well do that if you have a very, very smooth process and a lot of people standing in line to do testing. Works pretty much
exactly
as well, but the automation part here is the key component. But I understand what you mean, Johan, that the point is having a smooth reporting system, either automatic or making sure that you kind of catch these issues when they occur, right? Testing as a process as well as an automated tool.
You're going to think about that you've got 3,500 test cases. And from the automatic perspective, you can think, all right, I can build a snowball and I can push it rolling. And actually, this should test everything. So what is wrong about that? But if you're going to think about this more precisely, how long it takes to run 3,500 test cases, how much you have to maintain, how much you have to actually extract the critical data from the processes, because this will be not profitable project. This can be some abstract, can exist in some organizations.
The test becomes an impediment instead. You get stopped by because you have to involve your test team to make sure you have test coverage. And that's not the point. It should be an enabler, not a disabler. But
exactly, yeah.
Another question for me. I mean, you guys work with projects to include test automation, right? So where do you usually come in? Is it in the beginning of the project, to kind of build the process library to build testing, or is it usually like in maintenance, or when it's gone live already? Where do you guys usually come in?
We also try to answer this question, being frank with you, because that's very quite equal to every. We don't have like a majority of customers are picking like in the area where they are after go live. This is like quite the same level. Of course, from the biggest benefit, if you're gonna have your automation before your UATs, or you're gonna create them within the UATs, that's perfect. Yeah. Before the UATs, the processes can change so drastically that the adjustments can be just quite a nonsense. If you have some areas which are quite pure, we can say they align with the standard, you might have some benefit of automating that. Or if you're going to include some standard raw package of tests, it can actually cover some standard, and you've already have this out of the box. Yeah. So these are kinds of elements which are the most beneficial. But the majority of problems where they happen, they actually happen after go live, because the partner which gave the push, they went after go live, partner was testing, everybody is happy, product is actually good, Dynamics is rolling, and then customer have actually this understanding. All right, I have to upgrade. This is something new. I didn't know that I have to do it so soon. So they actually start to question, right, what I can do. They actually need to test. They need to. They are asking the business if they have time. Business tells no, of course, and they are starting to explore for some options. These are some very common things which happen. Of course, this question is also raised within the implementation when the implementation is bigger, and they are planning in a very major way the budgeting, and they are trying to estimate the TCO, the total cost of the ownership of the ERP system. And this question is also coming. So definitely there are some majority of big clients which are actually starting in the pre-implementation phase, which they have to budget that. But there is a quite equal level.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine it would make a lot of sense to be able to leverage automation as well as answer some like performance tests. Sometimes the product, of course, has to build kind of the process library first, and it makes sense. But do you see a lot of usage for your tool as well as other automation tool for performance testing as well before go live? I mean, not just when you find out you have an issue.
Sure. I mean, that's a nice topic, and you see there is a application called Perf SDK, the standard tool from Microsoft, and we've participated in multiple sessions, being an AX2G, Inspires, a lot of events, and talking about the same over and over. Mm-hmm. Lately, we've been in also on the Fast Track event, and we see that actually there is nothing coming from the performance perspective, and the Perf SDK is not the ideal solution. So we actually started to do some inside R&D on the test automation, because as I was mentioning you, 3,500 test cases, it might sound silly, but a lot of people are reaching over 1,000, which is putting them on the situation where they have to actually test in parallel. So it actually puts the test automation service that we provide to enable the users to do the parallel testing. And on some moment we said, all right, let's see where is our ceiling, how many sessions we can run on the same system. So from the situation, we went to company in it was quite close to London. We went for a quick showcase, and they showed us their intranet application where they raise tickets, And every failed request, failed login was actually, there was a pop-up message, and that message that there was a wrong login actually went to the IT department. And the IT department manager who was responsible for that area was sitting next to us. And he said, I'm just being messaged after each of those failed logins. And I said, that's quite dangerous. And he said, why exactly? And we actually executed 150 or something like that sessions in parallel. We actually created some kind of a DDoS on that endpoint. We actually killed the environment. And he said, right now I see the danger. And this actually gave the birth to our idea, all right, we can run a lot of sessions in parallel. We had to actually discover quite a bit of things to do that on Dynamics, considering number of accounts you have to use, consider some limitations on tier 1,
Yeah,
tier
the
2.
exactly. You have to actually, if you want to test on a real like production level, you still have to kind of get that tier 5 environment up and running.
Exactly,
as well,
yeah. Tier 4 or tier 5, which is quite expensive.
Yeah.
But we were, it was quite nice because we were able to find some patients, some people which want to test this with us. And last year we've done about 4 performance tests, 3 on premises. One was very nice. It was tier 5 environment with 12 AOSs, 6 AOS for business logic calculation, 6 AOSs for batch. And we were able, I would love to show you this, but we were able to max out over half of the AOSs, of course, practically all of the business object operations. Some of them, they actually died. Some of the AOS actually, the number of memory was not equal. Plus, we actually proved that the load balancing of those AOSs was not properly sort of configured. So there was on the beginning a lot of AOSs which were they were just jammed, bumped with those transactions, and some of them did just started to roll. And the result, Microsoft created a blueprint which gives you the possibility to scale your environment, and the customer actually filled those forms, and they were able to prepare this production environment. And it came up that they actually, with the amount of 670 or 7 something users in parallel, they were not able to fit in. So we actually proved that if they're going to go live with that setup, they will actually fail.
Very cool. I mean, that's fantastic. That's what you really want to do when you do performance tests, to do actual business operations, right? To kind of simulate that load. That's what everyone wants before they go live. Exactly. Will the system hold, right? Can we trust it? So there is a way to do that. But the point is that it might be a little bit expensive to run those tests, right? But,
exactly. You can't hire those 700 people to do on Saturday evening the same thing. And actually, you are referring to a very important thing,
Yeah,
most of the people are thinking about performance tests before go live. Yeah? But the company grows, and it is good to do this in the stages when you run 100% of what you are planning, and then scale up 25%, 50% to build some positivity, some idea what we have to invest, or are we on the exact tier, or so on.
Yeah.
Plus, if you think about rollouts, they're going to give you a number, a significant increase on the load. So the rollouts, it is good to also scale them and prepare some testing just before you include the actual entity.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, of course. All right, very cool. I mean, how much another percentage is interesting to know, because you always, from a testing perspective, we encounter from clients that some are very well prepared, some are not at all prepared. A lot of people want we want to, and in many cases, specifically for ERP, of course, Dynamics. You very seldomly have just Dynamics, right? You have a number of other systems on that enterprise level. And it always boils down to, yes, we can automate this, or we can automate this, but we cannot automate this because we have to get the return message. And you can build it in Logic Apps, you can use mock APIs, you can do a number of stuff. But again, then someone has to maintain those test cases, right, as well. So, I mean, from a guest point, how many end-to-end test scenarios do you usually see? Is it like 90% Dynamics and 10% end-to-end outside? And how much is that automated? Is that common, or is it just something people want, but they very rarely implement?
Good question. From the percentage perspective and statistic, that's quite hard to say now. But I think most of the end-to-end, at the end of the day, they're based on F&O. We can say for mid-size up to the big size, but not having in mind like those, let's say 3 or 4% of the market. I don't know what is the current number, but about probably like 30,000 companies running Dynamics across the globe. Yeah. The last statistics are 30,000, but they are from 2015, which might be not adequate. So that few percent, they actually run in combination of CPOS, so cloud point of services, so back and front end. That's quite nice. And few percent of the implementations we see, they run a full cycle going back to the front, and these are all those cases which are end to end. There are a lot of integrations with some internal shops. and Salesforce plus customer engagement, CE or /CRM. These are also very common things. And the only problem with CE or CRM is that we've been on multiple events, and we also are asked, are we handling CRM in a full scope? Mm-hmm. And the problem is that there are actually no tools on the market which are running fully effectively on CE and CRM, or CE/CRM, because customer engagement is the old CRM. The problem how it is built, and the iframes, a lot of exceptions, a lot of technicalities.
Dynamic values. Yeah, okay, I understand.
They are making this very problematic from the reusability perspective, and there is a huge demand. We are doing a lot of R&D in that way, but that's a quite problematic.
Yeah, but the problem there is kind of doing the recording, right? The step by step. Do you also have like support for API, like triggering something from? I mean, if I do something in Logic Apps, I want to fire off this test here. That's possible to do as well, right? And that's possible. That's really cool, because then you can have build events, right? Outside of Dynamics. Yeah.
Triggering is very important, and you've got like a full possibility to call REST APIs, to call any API, or actually invoke something from HTTP perspective, like a HTTP address which will invoke an end code. These are the best moments, as a product manager, when you see your kid. This is definitely the relation I'm feeling with my product. I'm leaving my kit with the end customer, and I'm coming back to them, after half of the year, and I see what they do with the product, and I'm just astonished. I can't believe that they actually wrote entire code which is doing something totally unpredictable, which we never even thought of that it is possible. And they were just asking us, if this is possible, can I use this? And we were never, matching that into the big picture of what they want to achieve. And then suddenly we see that they are doing something called RPA, robotic process automation, with the application for testing.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have
cool.
we have a colleague, me and Gustav, who actually, because we asked our colleagues today if they had any questions they could submit to us, and one of his questions was actually, is it possible to test against FNO but using OData instead? Because what he thought was that in some cases we just want to validate a value, and building it in a total test case with recording and stuff takes a lot of time. But if you already have the OData query, you can just paste it in and validate the result.
Yes, that's possible, and this is something we do, and we've seen people are doing. Plus, there is always a system table browser extension you can type as a MI parameter in the system, and it just opens up for you something you can filter. So there are multiple options how you can do that, and actually you can download data by the OData into the automation, so they can be very very effective. But there are also simplified methods. If you think about test automation, the very simple thing about like an Excel file can solve so many complicated issues that you don't need to use the OData, as this is harder to maintain.
Yes.
Yeah. So another very important topic, I'm not sure how much time we have left for this very huge topic on security and role-based, but I mean, test is such a big topic. One thing is unit testing. You want to make sure that stuff actually works. Doesn't matter who runs it. We just want to make sure we didn't break the actual logical function of it. The other is, of course, from a regression test perspective, can user X run this every time? That's a different thing for me. I mean, running unit testing or like daily heartbeats, that's where you want to make sure you don't break anything. But before you go live, specifically Dynamics, you have this very, very important business, specifically ERP, of course. So how does it cut in? You trigger which user, or you connect it to roles? How's that usually done? You have a set of like role-based testing.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a very big question from this security perspective, and probably we can spend an hour talking about that, and I would love to, because this is one of the...
We'll do a separate podcast on that one, I think.
I'm on board.
We'll be happy to.
The security actually, this actually highlights one nice problem, because very often UATs, the user acceptance test element, is done on the system admins. So out of the box, the customer is asking for problems, because they are making a situation where they will test with administration account. So they are not testing the security setup. and they are deploying on the production application, and maybe between UATs and production go live, they're gonna ask themselves, all right, what kind of roles we need to apply, and they are applying some levels which are actually also keeping them on very very high level license. Because of course everybody might not know, but the licenses are very strictly correlated with your security access. So when we are testing, we are utilizing virtual user, which are standing for your Active Directory accounts. Every Active Directory account has a specific set of roles. They are dedicated to the entity and they've got some specific access. Majority of customers, they are starting to use it firstly as a system admin, just to have access to everything, to record everything. To record all test cases, record without actually thinking about the security, because also security is, the processes are recorded by the business, so we don't want to disturb so much the business. We just need their knowledge. When we have that, we are able to extract the security or think about the security to build those roles. So the test automation then will be executed on a prepared role, which will be sufficient, which will be optimized from the different perspective, and then it gives some reliability. But this is the way how we execute that. But the major problem that we are seeing right now is that actually this is the last thing you think of from the implementation perspective, or very often actually this is left by the implementation partner. So as the end customer, you need to fight with that. We need to find out what kind of role I need, if this is enough, and the people are struggling with not exact access, or the owner, the program manager, is actually seeing the first invoice from the licenses, and they are put on the spot to actually respond to why everybody is actually having the most costful license for the from the product.
Yeah, and have you ever encountered anyone who uses our side of test automation tool, your tool, to kind of find out which role can actually run this process? That's another perk you could do to kind of to tweak your licensing. Has that ever happened?
Yeah. So there is a standard mechanism of Dynamics to allows you to extract security from task recordings, which is very nice when you start to think about that. But when you go to the details, it came up that it doesn't fit the gap. It's simply not extracting all action items, display items. Not all of the display, practically 100%, but not all action items and outcomes are visible. Plus, you are not thinking about form controls and some very advanced stuff, which are making the extraction practically impossible. On the top of that, there is no interface of it, which gives you the possibility to easily understand what kind of security context you can build. In AX 2012, there was a perfect tool which gives you a starting point, and this was called Microsoft Security Development Tool.
Yeah, I know.
And I was using that for multiple projects. We were able to drag down drastically number of licenses from the enterprise level to the lower ones, and customers were happy. We were able to build very nice, precise roles. But in finance and operations, we don't have this type of tool, and we're actually left behind. There is actually a new feature, which is awesome. We like that. The security layer, which is actually a non-code existing security. They are actually based in tables, and they are very easy to transfer from the environments. But this actually creates a massive problem as well. And having this in mind, this issue, we created a second product called Security Setup Wizard, which actually have a combination of features to build the roles. And I can tell you that in last year, we've done deployment of one of the biggest brands in fashion in Russia. Within 2 months, a full development of roles for entire company. We've done this year a company this is actually super nice. They are selling merchandise stuff from Harry Potter, AC/DC, Motorhead, and any other thing you can think of. They also have Star Wars.
Okay,
and they are super shop.
I want to work there.
And
count me in.
And
I can develop their security roles any day. Not a problem.
Actually, they are ending the project because in 1.5 months, they've done full release cycle for their roles development. So they actually had no roles. And after 1.5 months, with 2 consultants, they were able to build full role security for the organization, which is optimized from the licensing perspective.
That's very nice. Cool feature. All right. I mean, I have nothing else. We could go on and on for the testing topic as well as the security topic, but we kind of want to keep it down. But I think security might be a separate podcast, right, Johan?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's time to finish for today. Thank a lot, Bartosz, for joining us. It's been really nice so and a really nice conversation. And as we said before, I am really hoping that you can join us at some other point to discuss security or something else fun.
Definitely, I'm on board. I love those conversations, and I love your guys, your work, guys. I mean, keep up with that because this is awesome. Thank you so much for inviting. So yeah, look forward to have another session.
Absolutely,
it's been fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye all.